In this episode,
Speaking of food, like, seeing these food shows and stuff, I have to ask you, have you ever heard of something called mukbang?
Mukbang?
Yeah.
Dude, you're gonna talk about that again?
Look, he's making food, man. I mean, I gotta bring it up.
Mukbang, where they're doing the eating on the. They got to show it.
See, Chad, you're on the ball, man. You know, So I didn't know if you did any of that.
Oh my gosh!
I don't think that I'm not sexy enough and Asian enough.
Welcome. You're listening to PaleoCheeze Podcast, episode 22, part 1, with musician Blaine Cook.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bannister.
And I'm Chad Lutsky.
And you're listening to PaleoCheeze Podcast, part of the Project Entertainment Network. We're the podcast where a seasoned horror veteran holds the white-knuckled hand of a horror newbie, that's me, as we explore the genre together, film by film. But we don't just explore movies, Chad. We do that, and we're going to do that tonight. But we also sometimes have really special guests.
Yes, tonight. And you know what? This is our second musical guest. We had Jeremy Wagner from Broken Hope.
Yeah.
And I guess Mallerman would count as both an author and a musical guest. I mean,
you can't say I guess, dude. He's going to be real mad. He'll be like, I'm bona fide,
man. He's got it. Yeah, I mean, he's toured all over, and
yeah.
I mean, they wrote the theme song for Shameless, and they got albums out and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I'm particularly excited about this one though, because we have Blaine Cook, and I've been a fan of his stuff since I was a kid, literally like 35 years. And in certain circles, he doesn't need any introduction at all. But for those who are not like woke to the hardcore and punk rock scene, Blaine has been the front man for the Black Nasty, Denial Fiend, Toe Tag, as well as the Farts and 10 Minute Warning, with the last two bands also featuring Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses here and there a little bit. And then most notably, Blaine has sang for The Accused, one of the original bands to pioneer the crossover genre, like crossover thrash, crossover punk, whatever you want to call it. Lamb of God, Municipal Waste, Cannibal Corpse, and even Mike Patton from Faith No More and 50 other bands have cited The Accused as a musical influence. Blaine's bands have played shows with everyone's favorites from yesteryear, like the Bad Brains, DOA, GBH, Circle Jerks, and I think Dead Kennedys.
Oh, Dead Kennedys, yeah. DRI.
Yeah, oh yeah. And now, a couple years ago, he and a few other guys from The Accused started The Accused AD in order to continue celebrating their music by playing shows and even recording a new album. So after that very lengthy introduction about Blaine Cook, Blaine, thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Oh, thank you, Chad. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Yes, man.
Happy to be here.
And before we go any further, I don't want to forget this. Our intro music is a song from The Accused, and Blaine and Tommy gave us their blessing for using that, and we took the liberty of altering it slightly, just to at least the bars, so that we can fit it in with our intro. And you can hear Blaine for about a second in the intro and the outro. We use them for the outro too. But yeah, thanks a lot for letting us do that, because otherwise we'd have to get some royalty-free music, and those are sometimes just so generic sounding.
Not as happy.
Yeah.
We have the coolest intro for any podcast. So
it was funny too when Chad first brought that up. Remember, Chad, dude, I was resistant. I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, a punk song, kind of like really, really upbeat and stuff. And I said, I don't know, and he's like, well, you just got to hear it, dude. He's like, I really think it'd work. And so I remember listening to it, and it didn't take long before I was like, okay, because I do the editing for the intro. So I put all the pictures together and timed it. And we went back and forth, and he's like, we could space it out. And I said, okay, we can do this. And as soon as we watched it and just heard that sound and sat back and soaked it all in, it was like perfecto mundo.
one, yeah.
I said, it is us. And I said, so now when people listen, you know, so mad props to you guys. And we made sure that very first episode, we made sure to talk about that and to say, you know, where this music came from, because it's the coolest intro music, if I can say so. We have the coolest intro song, man, of any podcast anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
It does fit well. When I was like, you know what, I want to use an Accused song. Let me search for one first that I thought would sound really good, and then I'll ask Blaine. And there was a couple. I can't remember what I think there was two. There was the other one, but I thought a little bit more listener friendly. I guess
listener friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, and not your typical a good song, not your typical example of what the Accused sounds like. But then again, you guys have, you know, mixed it up so much that actually it's not that bad of an example, because it just goes to show the different areas, you know, the Frankenstein, if you will, of all of the different stuff that you guys mix in together. So yeah,
that's how we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, it's funny that you were with a band called The Farts, because your voice comes in right before like the loudest, juiciest fart at the end of our show.
At the end of our outro.
End of our show. This. And that's a vintage, that's a throwback, you know, for us, going back, how long, man? Quite a while, Chad. And it was cool because, you know, I'm going through and Chad's sending me some songs and everything, and he's like, you got to hear this one. It's kind of a sampling of your stuff, including a concert where you were sporting a really awesome shirt. In fact, it was a shirt of one of my all-time favorite books, Skullface Boy. And I'm like, I'm serious. I said, I messaged Chad right away, and I said, bro, I said, I did not even know that there were shirts. You've got me onto something, Blaine. my son was listening. Yeah, it was amazing, and it was cool because when I first saw you up on the stage, you got great presence too, by the way. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and I thought, man, I'm like, that guy's got an amazing shirt. Like, Blaine's really rock. What is that shirt? And I'm kind of looking. I don't have my glasses on, and I'm looking, and it just, my eyes, it's like that Maud or whatever from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the lady in the truck.
Large Marge.
Her eyes go, Large Marge, yes, dude. Just and it opened up, and I thought, I need this right now. And so I'm grateful, but it was cool because as I'm playing it, not only did I learn something new about this, and I should have known, I mean, but the thing is, I learned it. But my son, Lucian, he's like, I don't know, 20, 21 months old right now. And he's eating his food. He's learning to use a fork. And I'm listening to this music. Man, I'll tell you, you've got a new fan. My son, it's like, he was going nuts. He was like, ah, and he's like screaming like along with you. And he was dancing around and stuff. When we got him out of the chair, he's dancing around. And he does this kind of thing. He's got his hand on his head and he's moving all around. So you've got a brand new fan, maybe the youngest, one of the youngest, but he loved it, man. So he loved the sound. He was singing right there with you, the best he could.
That's cool. You know, my son, who's 24 now, he was an Accused fan when he was like, I think about 10. You know, my fault. And I made him like a little comp thing and had a bunch of different songs on there. And I remember when he was like, I think he was like 11, maybe 12. I can't remember. But he said one day, and for those who haven't heard the Accused, Blaine has got one of the most unique, distinct voices that you've ever heard for any genre of music. But it's just crazy. So when my son, Elijah, he asked me one day, because he knew that I had done a telephone interview for my magazine a long time ago, like 18, 19, 20 years ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah. And so he asked me, what does Blaine sound like when he talks? And I said, but he sounds normal. And so Blaine and I had kept in contact, and a little bit, you know, I'd ask him, got anything new coming out or whatever. And he might send me a CD or something, or I would order something. So we kind of kept in contact around that time. And I sent him an email, and I said, just in the email, I was like, by the way, my son said this, and I thought it was hilarious. He said, have him call me.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that
now. I said, yeah, okay. And I did. I waited till like a Sunday night when I thought it was like, you know, past dinner time or something. And then Elijah called, and they talked for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And Elijah was just so starstruck, man. It was cute. But yeah, he's 24 now. But yeah,
well, that's cool. We were talking. Obviously, we were talking earlier on, but yeah, that's I've had this relationship with Chad over, aka Burnt Cereal, over the this computer screen here for so many years, and I have the same. I have a couple other relationships like that as well. It's kind of it's a old school kind of pen pal, type of a deal. It's it's great. It's something to embrace. And I get to go to Chad. He's done some stuff, for me and for what I do, and it's great.
You know what? I think I recorded that conversation and I have it on tape somewhere because I thought when Elijah got older, I don't even know if he knows that I have it on, and I haven't listened to it since. But I thought that one day he would appreciate that, to hear him, you guys talking on there. I can't remember what you guys are talking about or anything. But
I don't even remember. Once you mentioned that, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah.
I wanted to tell a quick story too before we got into like the discussion part stuff. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, or if you read it somewhere or anything, because I think I've talked about it before. But I was at my local record store in it was 87, and I had $10. And back then, when you didn't have a lot of money, and of course you couldn't just stream stuff, $10, you needed to make the right choice about what your next record was going to be. And you had a greater appreciation. So even if an album sucked, I remember getting like, what was it, Kiss Unmasked, when that came out, and I pretty much forced myself to like it. Because it's like when you spend hard-earned money on something like that, and it's like, well, I can't get another record for another month or two, so I better like this. And but I was at the record store and I was going through the tapes, and they had Return of Martha Splatterhead tape there by The Accused, and I saw the cover, and I couldn't listen to it. This is before CDs. Later, the record store would let you listen to a CD or throw on the vinyl or something like that, and then you could be like, yeah, I don't want this, or yeah, I want to grab this. This is a tape. So I knew that buying something by the cover was a really bad idea. I'd had bad experiences before.
The cover or the name of the band.
Yeah. So against my better judgment, I slapped down the $10 anyway. And that was the beginning of it, man. It was such a great decision. And then I found out some people in the punk scene had already been listening, and then I turned a bunch of people on, and so we had this kind of small following of The Accused, and then more albums started. And then I discovered this was after More Fun was out, but it was before Mad as Stories, because we had one of my friends had a birthday party at my house, and one of us had gotten him Mad as Stories on vinyl for his birthday, because it had just come out. So that was like, I guess it was 87. Yeah, 87 or 88, maybe 88. Okay. Yeah. So you still with us, Jeremiah?
I'm with you, man. I am with you. I'm just listening to the gush, dude. I love it.
Oh, okay.
And it's cool because, like, when I used to go to your house when I first met you and stuff, I would see all the different music that you had. And it was interesting because, people who watch the show know that I was raised in a very evangelical, but kind of a little bit on the fundamentalist side of things in a home. And so we didn't have a lot of the music. I didn't know anything by Bon Jovi and Van Halen. Like, I didn't know anything, Kiss, we definitely were not allowed. And so I was just
Knights in Satan's service.
Yes, and so, like, the idea, of seeing a lot of these bands and a lot of these records and stuff, it was something you'd see when you go in the mall and you're, or into any of the old music stores and stuff, like Rock Cafe, things like that. But you'd walk by it and you'd see and kind of look at covers and see what you like. And I always thought of all the different covers of, different albums and CDs and stuff you had. This band called The Accused had these crazy wild covers, man. And like just the art on them. And you were explaining to me, because we were talking earlier, and I was like, well, what exactly is Martha Splatterhead? I'm like, what is that? And you were like, oh, dude. And you broke it down, and I'm like, yes. Oh, I get it now. I understand that. And it's iconic. Like, once you've seen one of those covers, that you won't forget. Like, you'll always at least be able to put those together, even if you hadn't heard the band. You'll always just know. You'll be like, yeah, that's the Accused, because they're that good. It's great art. It's always really creative, and by the having listened to songs now, to say, yeah, it kind of is like what they sound like. If you had, it's a perfect mascot. Okay, so it's super mad props to that. But I was curious, we were talking beforehand, Blaine, and you were saying some stuff before the show about something that you're doing, and I want to hear more about it. I wanted desperately to ask you in the green room and ask you these questions, and I said, but I kind of need to wait for this. But so you mix drinks. Okay, anyone can see, anybody watching this, because it's a podcast and a video. Yeah. If you're watching this, you can see he's got a very impressive row of bottles behind him. Very impressive. And I said, I'm very, I'm envious, in fact, of that. And he said that he does a mixing show. What is that?
Well, we started off trying to do the Facebook Live type of a deal, and that was kind of janky. Then we were just recording just videos. No, but ever since this whole thing that we're in first started, I just started, showing, me making dinner, which is kind of like when all of this social stuff first started, people used to joke about it. It's like, well, it's Chad. He's at, the Olive Garden, and he's showing his plate of pasta and his garlic bread, Then it turned into something totally different. So now it's kind of like going back to that. So, I started, it's like, I'm just showing myself cooking food, because I'm not me by myself, my family, my wife and myself and our daughter, even though she doesn't live with us, we own a business. And over the past 2 years, I just have an ownership role. I do some shopping, a little administrative, and a little maintenance. So my working is about 2-3 hours out of the day. And since all this other stuff started, my wife is working from home. So I do all the shopping, and I do all the cooking. And then we just started getting into making different cocktails, and kind of researching that there was, post and pre-prohibition, the liquor, when we're earlier on, you talking about NAFTA, everybody's so used to being able to have all this stuff, even with drinking or cooking, even 15 or 20 years ago, the kind of stuff you could get, it's not the same as now. So you do these prohibition era drinks, and it's just all this, weird stuff like these different vermouths or Lillet, or, a lot of gin, because back then they didn't have vodka, because vodka was something that was, that they had in other countries, but wasn't introduced into the United States until later on, because they wanted like this neutral spirit that people could mix with a bunch of stuff. And that was, one of the original ones that got people.
Wow.
If you look in vintage cocktail books, there's very, very few cocktails that are vodka based. So yeah, I mean, we just started making the cocktails and doing the cooking up in our kitchen. And our kitchen is kind of like the favorite part of our house. We remodeled our house about 20 years ago, and when we did that, we wanted the kitchen was where we spent the most money. And then about 2 months ago, down in our basement, because we practice in our house as well, we have a jam room, and we have a little space there. I created a little a set with a bunch of, there's more booze down there, and we just started doing the cocktails on the making little videos. I don't know. It's just,
there's got to be booze all over the house. I mean, that way, if you got to record anywhere, you're like, well, there's some right here behind the pillow. But yeah, I was thinking,
I don't know. It's something. I don't know. It's something to do, and sometimes people get scared even about cooking. There's I've watched cooking shows since I was a little kid. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I was watching Graham Kerr and Julia Child, and then I continue to do so up until now. I still watch cooking shows, and it's something that you can share with people. Some people are scared about food or different flavors, and where we are right now, if you can't go out, or even if it's just not it's not economically a good thing to go out and eat dinner. I mean, a lot of the stuff you could do at home if you just right. Especially when everybody's at home now, if you got an extra half hour or 45 minutes, I mean, you can put together, quality food that you'd pay good money for, and same as drinks, you know.
Speaking of food, like, you know, seeing these food shows and stuff, I have to ask you, have you ever heard of something called mukbang?
Mukbang.
Yeah.
Dude, you're gonna talk about that again?
Look, he's making food, man. I mean, I gotta bring it up. Yeah. So mukbang is. I'll just very quickly say it. People in South Korea had this idea of, you know, well, if certain people are lonely, and this is pre-COVID stuff.
Oh, mukbang, where they're doing the eating on the. They got to show.
See, look, Chad. You know, you're on the ball, man. You know, So I didn't know if you did any of that.
Oh my god!
I don't think I'm not sexy enough and Asian enough. Watch me watch a bucket.
Oh man!
No, but I have. Yeah, that's right. I have seen that.
So you know what that is.
That's what the whole with Chad and I having this viral relationship for so long, and that's how it's moved, where get these people that there's these other guys that do cocktail shows, or some guys that have shows just about bourbon. They get like 200,000 views.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they're sponsored, and people send them. You look at these. I mean, I have a fair amount of money invested into the alcohol that we have here, but I look at this other stuff. It's like shit. I'm looking at. There's a wall of $200 or $300 worth of booze. I mean, you guys got like $15,000 worth of alcohol there. It's like, how can you possibly, what are you guys doing to have that much booze? And it's, it's just weird how it's moved to where you could just do something that people are watching on their telephone, because it isn't in front of a computer anymore. And I watch some of this new rap stuff, stuff that doesn't even get released in a physical form, and they're making these videos, and they're getting 3, 5, 6 million people that are watching this stuff. It's like wow, and you don't hear about it because it's a whole other networking or whatever it is that you're able to how anybody right now could possibly keep up with everything that goes on in popular culture. I don't know. Don't know how you could do it.
Now, you said you were doing Facebook Live, and you said you were doing that. What are you doing? What are you using now?
Now we just record the video on the phone and then just post the video.
Yeah.
We still have to get around to setting up a YouTube channel. We're just
I've been inspired, man.
Like 250 people that religiously watch me make content.
Man.
That's good.
Yeah. It's good. Yes.
I've always thought that I was a good cook, but then I started I think it was, my wife and I was talking with my wife, and I was like, we're getting older. We got to be, she's 54, I'm 50. We got to be healthy, or we're going to regret it. And so we started, she was kind of like on the verge of becoming a vegetarian. And I toyed around with the idea of trying to find recipes, because someone had mentioned it's all about the seasoning. And we usually don't do red meat anyway, like ground turkey or something, and fish and stuff. And so in the red meat anyway, and sausage will like mess with her stomach and stuff. So she just stopped doing that. And then I gathered a bunch of recipes that I thought that she would like. And then, like I said, I always thought that I was a good cook, but then in these recipes was all these seasonings and things that I'd never, like kimchi fried rice and stuff. I didn't even know what kimchi was. And other vegetables that I wasn't even sure I knew how to pronounce, or seasonings that I'd never used before. Right. A lot of times when I cook, it would just be like, it would be some kind of like, steak seasoning, or some like kind of like all-purpose kind of, thing that would probably go good in anything. Yeah. And so we were trying to go more of like a whole foods route. And then you started cooking, and I was like, dang, okay, now Blaine knows how to cook. I do not know how to cook, I guess, because he's using all this stuff that half of which I've never even heard of. Like some of the, I can't remember some of the stuff that you were using. I think it was a couple of vegetables or something, and then and making like cauliflower steaks and stuff like that. I was like, wow. And so I got a bunch. So for like the past 2 months, I've been making all these really crazy like recipes, like Thai, were you are taking like making like I made some mango salsa with what was it? Some kind of pineapple fried rice that has like cashews and stuff in it, and peanut butter. You know, and you're mixing these things that sound like this is not going to be good.
It's the same as when you make these cocktails. You know, you're mixing all these things together. It's like, how is that going to taste good? Then you taste it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, it just works. And so I need to, you know, I've only been doing these recipes for a couple months, so I can't do something really on my own yet, like I used to be able to do, like make some kind of rice dish and throw, you know, green peppers and mushrooms and then you know, make some kind of like sauce using seasonings that I'm familiar with, even from like a packet or something, like a, you know, but now I'm trying to not use those packets and just use, but I don't know. It's like painting. If you're an artist and you're not familiar with the color scheme, not all colors are going to complement each other. And so you have to learn them. And I think that's the same way with food. It's like, well, you can't just grab peanut butter and then add Tabasco and this cumin and then expect to make some great sauce to go on your rice.
It's the same with the cooking as it is with the painting. Like if you're trying to go for a specific color of red, you need this, but you need just a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that or a little bit more of this. You know, it's not like just, and sometimes when you follow a recipe, I found recently, you know, a lot of cookbooks, and a lot of it depends on your taste. Like if you're making something and it's like, you know, you want less peanut butter, or you want more spice.
Sure.
You're going to do what, you know, there's, you know, a chef that we like that, you know, that does some really great stuff that we like is Jamie Oliver. He does some stuff. There's another guy whose name I can't remember. And he's kind of corny. Some of the ones on PBS, you know, they're a little corny, but he's a guy that does food just for people over 50. You know what I mean? And it's just, you know, same as the cooking or painting or anything else, you know, you have to have that all, you know, you have to have like 10 or 12 spices, or if you're doing, you know, Asian stuff, you know, got to have soy sauce and, you know, some fish sauce and some sriracha and some sambal and, you know, all those things that you need to be able to make, you know, make it happen.
Yeah, that was a big investment too. I mean, we had spices, but there was so much stuff that we did not have.
Yeah, it's an investment, but shit, that stuff it's, you know,
it lasts a while.
Right. They talk about, you know, spices. It's like, you know, you've got some spices in the jar versus buying in bulk. It's like, well, they're bulk. Somebody put a big jar into a container versus you've got a jar that you've had in your counter for 3 years. You know, it's like, you know, it's not going to go. It's not going to spoil or get tainted. You just might have to use a little bit more.
It's funny, you know, you were talking about things that don't go together. And or that you don't think, you know, you wouldn't imagine anyway. Yeah, that you wouldn't think. And I got to say this first, man, kimchi, we have an amazing Korean store here because my wife is half Korean. And whenever her mother comes, they always want to go, you know, because her mom's born and raised in Korea. And so she always says, we need to go to the Korean store. And we always come back with this massive tub of kimchi. And I've tried kimchi all over the place, man. And it's my personal favorite. So maybe for Christmas, dude, I'll come up with something, man. Maybe our New Year episode or something like that. But I wanted to say about those are
the kind of stores that you need to shop at when you want that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Local store, you know, versus trying to go to your regular grocery store. You know, like a Korean version of sriracha is goju chang, and it's, you know, kind of like sriracha, a little bit sweeter. But, you know, you get it at a Korean store, it's going to be $2.50 versus getting it at whatever your local grocery store. If they have it, it might be $4.
Yeah. You just blew my mind with this. I love sriracha sauce. Now I'm like, I have to try this.
Yeah. Goju Chang. Yeah. Check it out. It's similar, but a little bit different. Yeah.
But the thing is the idea of flavors that you didn't think or wouldn't imagine or, you know, would have never thought of. And one of those, as we were preparing for the show, I looked up sambuca, right? And so I was like, oh, sambuca. Okay, well, what is this? I didn't know what that was. And I'm like, 76 proof. I mean, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty decent. I'm doing pretty good. A liqueur. elderberry, licorice, and essential oils.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I just recently had there's a newer style of beer. If I'm remembering, it's is it New England pale ale? I think it might be New England pale ale or something. Anyway, it's floral. I tried it because I like pale ale. I like, anything that's real dark or real bitter. I like all that kind of stuff. And but that particular one that it actually was made by a brewery in town, because we're in Grand Rapids. We have a ton of these breweries here. And I tried it, and he's like, "Well, it's got a floral taste to it." And I'm thinking, "What?"
from the hops.
Yeah. But I'm like, you could smell it. I mean, it was different than anything I'd ever had. And then I tried a different thing, and it won, I guess, a prize. And I don't know where this was. Overseas is kind of I don't know if it's Iceland or where, but they took a vote in the country to try to get an idea for what were the favorite. If they would put any flavor into a beer, what would the top 3 things be? And I think one was like money, and one was pizza, and I forget what the other one was. And they really did it, and they made it. And I'll tell you, you could taste it. I don't know about the money. I've never just put money in my mouth. You know what I mean? But I can't tell you if I was like, there it is, that's the money. But the pizza, and it was weird because it actually was good. and it was super, super strong. I mean, like really strong. But it was just a trial run. It was for fun, but I bought it, and I thought, who would have thought? Like the pizza actually is kind of a good aftertaste. You could taste it at the tail end. And I said, man, I'd buy that more than once. Kind of blew my mind. Yeah.
So go back to the Sambuca. I actually enjoy Sambuca quite a bit. I don't have any right now, but when you traditionally drink Sambuca, it has 3 coffee beans in it, and one's for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Our neighbor used to be Italian, and well, she still is Italian, but she shared some of those.
Wow.
What was the status, man? What is that? Trying to remember what that particular, I don't know if it's a liqueur or a liquor. It's almost got, they claim like almost like it's like an aphrodisiac or hallucinogenic properties. What is that?
Would be absinthe.
Absinthe. What was the status of absinthe before? Do you know? Like
absinthe, supposedly, it actually just became legal in the United States, probably about 13 years ago, and it supposedly the original recipe had like wormwood in it, and wormwood was an hallucinogenic. But other than that, it's kind of more like one of those things that it's had this mythology that it's followed that no longer really holds true. But people, and there's a specific there's a little special little spoon you hold that's got some sugar in it. You pour the absinthe over the spoon into the glass, and there's some.
I think you're supposed to lay naked in a bathtub while you're doing all this. Isn't that part of the ritual?
Yeah, it's part of the ritual.
Like, it's some Edgar Allan Poe, kind of. Yeah, I had a job some years ago that took me to Slovakia, in a small town called Lučanec, and I bought some bottles of absinthe that I brought back to the States, and we had a Halloween party here at the house, and people were just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you got absinthe!" It's like it's like Jägermeister, It's like, it's like nothing. It's just it's something that maybe way back when it had some properties, but yeah, definitely.
I thought I had, because I've only had it a couple times. It was years and years ago. But I had everybody, they went through the whole thing with the fire and the sugar cubes and all. It's kind of cool, I mean, that was kind of like, I can imagine people being like mesmerized by this thing. Yeah. But if I remember correctly, I forget how we got it, but it said on the bottle that it had wormwood. And and I think I may even still have it in this office. I might still have it where it says that it had wormwood, because I think I saved that one and a couple other bottles that were, it was a beer that came out that had peppers Like it was a real strong spice. I know that you have kind of like that Aztec flavor that oftentimes will have spice with it and stuff like that. But this one had habaneros, and so it had that kick to it. But I think I have that, and I have got the bottle of absinthe, and it was imported. It was really small, and I'm pretty sure that they said it had wormwood, and I think it was on the bottle, but I don't know. But I was just curious. I didn't know like what was the status of that. Because it's interesting that you say you couldn't get vodka. And, it would make sense, not just because of trade and stuff, but also, Cold War stuff later. Like, I don't know what the effect of that, if that played any later on, if that had any effect on it.
Oh, most definitely. Like you couldn't get because we live really close to Canada. And before the Berlin Wall went down, you couldn't get real Russian vodka in the United States, but you could get it in Canada. Or just like the Cuban cigars, you can get a Cuban cigar in the United States now, where you could get it in Canada, but you couldn't get it in the U.S.
That it's funny because I've had one. I had a. In fact, I may even still have a picture on social media with one of those cigars, and somebody told me that this is back quite a while ago. They're like, "Dude, you can't actually buy those in the United States." And I thought, well, I heard that. I know where I got it from. I won't say where I got it from. If it doesn't matter now, you know what I mean? But at the time, they're like, I don't know if you want to put that up, dude. I said, what are they going to do? I mean, you're going to come and like kick in my door and be like, dude, I saw you were smoking a Cuban cigar on social media. You were at a coffee shop.
I remember you brought a Cuban cigar over to my house one time.
Yeah.
And you're like, I think you said you got it from your priest or something.
It was a guy. Well, it was somebody. Yeah, it wasn't my priest. It wasn't my priest, but it was. You're correct to say it was associated with church. We'll just put it that way.
Okay,
somebody with family. Somebody with family.
I remember you brought it over, and I'm not a cigar guy. I just don't like them. But I remember you brought it over, and I was like, you said this is Cuban, and I knew that it was not legal. So I was like, I have to have this. I have to at least be able to say I had the, because. It's just that it's the word that's associated with, when you watch a movie or whatever, it's and the characters are all like, oh, is that Cuban? It's Cuban, and stuff. So it's like, I got to see what this is about. And it was horrible. It was horrible.
No way.
No, it was so nasty.
I liked it, man. Yeah, but it was a Cohiba, and I had because it got that wrap on it,
Yes.
And it had that. It was in bold black letters, and I had kind of the yellow checkers around the outside of it, and I was like. It's a cool picture, and I thought it looked kind of fancy. And so I'm like, dude, yeah, I'm smoking a Cuban, guys. Not thinking about it, but yeah. So I find it so fascinating that you do that, and that stuff that I just didn't think about, about what kind of mixed drinks would they have, back in that day, and how would trade or how would changing rules regarding prohibition, how would globalization, like how would that affect alcohol that we come to nowadays, to just say, well, yeah, it's a staple at this point. Well, but it wouldn't have even been on the agenda at all. I mean, it's not even in the social imaginary of bartenders because it was just not.
And the rules have changed. I mean, you guys see where you're at. You said you have a lot of breweries where you're at. That wasn't the case. 10 or 15 years ago. That's just where they've had to loosen up those rules. Even around the United States, where microbrews, it used to be kind of a regional thing where that was allowed, and now that's pretty much across the United States. And even small distilleries, wineries, all of that stuff is there's taxes to be made,
and even homebrews. I mean, I knew homebrew friends, man, where that was like. That was almost like the moonshine run and stuff at the time. It was like, dude, you can't just roll in with that. There were rules, like you couldn't host a party, for example. Like there's a lot of things, and some of that's still around now. But they, even with more liberalization of various laws, that it's still kind of a tricky thing. But I've helped to brew some beers. You know what I mean? I helped to brew one. It was a Christmas stout. And it had, chocolate in there and kind of this peppermint. It was delicious, man. Starlight mint flavored stuff. You know what I mean? And so it was really cool. And I really enjoyed that. And I know some guys, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's not a beer. Technically speaking, it's like a wine. Was
Mead.
that mead? Yes, man. Thank you so much.
Made with honey.
Yes, my buddy came over. He had made some mead, and he brought over this bottle, and it was just one of those really tightly fit ones that has the metal that you can kind of lock over, and it locks it down.
The Grolsch bottles with the ceramic and the washer.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I had that, man, and I'll tell you, that was just
I
heaven.
was a home brewer back in the I'm a little bit older, so it's not like I'm just saying I did all this stuff. No, we were doing the home brew stuff back in the mid to late 80s when that first happened. And it's the same it's the same thing with cooking, it's like you got your malt, you got your hops, you got your yeast, and you got your water. And I don't do it. I don't brew. We moved to when the last we were brewing beer, we were doing it into small kegs, just because it was just too much of a hassle to do it into bottles. And I don't do it now because I don't have anybody to drink it. We don't really drink that kind of beer around the house. Although I would like to try to make some, moonshine. There's a number of different type of applications that are out there that you can adapt to the home use.
No, what's the difference, real quickly, man? What's the difference between moonshine and like corn whiskey?
It's the same thing.
Same thing. Okay.
That's just the down and dirty.
I've had the down and dirty, man. I've had corn whiskey.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize.
It's that stuff's gnarly.
Oh, dude, I didn't know. Like they were like, oh, here, man, you want some corn whiskey? We're going to Boston, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And so they're like, tell me when to stop. I'm just thinking whiskey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're just pouring. I was in the Navy, and I had this massive glass. Oh yes, man, look at that.
Mellow corn.
We're just having some of this afternoon. But
Now, is it true that
corn rice?
Yep. Yeah. Is it true that when you pop it that's how it goes down? Like what's the proof? Because isn't it like, I thought I saw ones that were like 190 or something like that.
The one that I have there is 100 proof.
It's 100 proof.
Yeah.
The one that they had at the commissary in the at the Navy base, man, that bugger was super strong, and they poured a bunch of it, and then they put in just a dash of like Tang or something. And I'm sitting in the car, and because you could drink back then, man, you could like drink in the back seat, but you couldn't if you were driving, you couldn't. And so it was kind of weird, man. But we're sitting there, and I'm drinking by myself and everything. And by the time we get to Boston, I'm so tanked out of my mind, I don't even know what's going on. I blacked out. They jokingly handcuffed me to this rail, and they took pictures of me. I don't remember anything, but I do remember that it was corn whiskey. I said, what's this? So, yeah, that's crazy, you guys. A big bottle of that corn whiskey, man.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I just got that yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, listen to you guys talking about what's weird is all of this stuff. Like I started drinking at a really early age, and then quit, and then started and quit, and it's been 10 years since I've had a drink, and even before that, I had another decade under my belt of not doing it. But because I started early, and I guess I quit early, I think I quit drinking by the time I was right before I turned 21. So, but you never have any money. So it was always all about how much can we get for, let's get some Goebbels Black Label or whatever. It wasn't about taste, well, I think I'm in the mood for, a scotch, or, it was just like, how many 40s can we get for the $5, So, and then as I got older, and I think you remember this, Jeremiah, I think it was like 30, and, maybe my mid 30s. And I was like, I haven't drank in like 10 years. And yeah, I guess I was at like 31, 32. I haven't drank in like 10 years. I got a family now. It'll be okay. I'm going to be fine. And I was never like a obnoxious drunk or a violent drunk or anything like that. I was a happy drunk. I always have been when I do drink, but I don't like the dependence that I would gain from it. And I have a really difficult time, even like, so I started finding myself not being able to be social and having anxiety because I didn't have something to drink. and not feeling like myself. So I stopped. And Jeremiah, I remember you were over one time. This was like, it's like 20 years ago, and you were drinking a beer, and I was like, man, that looks really good. And I noticed that you would just like have one beer and then you were just done. Yeah. And I was like, man, I really envy that. Because I've just never been able to do that. As a matter of fact, if I don't have a certain amount, I usually just wouldn't drink at all. Because
but wasn't it camo black ice? I mean, that's like blackout in a can.
No. You were drinking. You were drinking Miller Lite, the High Life.
What? Yeah. No, am I okay? There was a.
Or it was Heineken. It was one of the two.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Okay, well, anyway, you were young. You were really young too. But I remember. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a casual drinker, like I've always wanted to do. And that lasted for about a year, and then it became this, 6-pack a night thing, and I just didn't, like I said, I didn't like what it was, saying to my kids and stuff, where I'd be alone, not even socially, I'd be alone playing like World of Warcraft or something, and at the end of the night I've got like 6 to 8 beers sitting around me, and it's like I'm not, this is just me, and I think my wife said something, and it just looks sad that I'm sitting here by myself drinking all of this beer and not being social or anything. And so I quit. But the reason why I brought it up is when people talk about scotch or bourbon, I love a good bourbon and stuff. Dude, I don't think that as much as I've drank in my life, it was always just like, what's that? Alcohol? All right, let's have it. I couldn't tell you what bourbon tastes like or what scotch tastes like. I can tell you like what a screwdriver. I mean, that's kind of like that's an easy drink, OJ and vodka or beers. But I often tease my son, Elijah, because he's a casual drinker. He gets a 6-pack and it'll last him weeks. But I tease him because he's, he gets the hipster beer where it's like all these fruity flavors. And so I joke with him. It's part jealousy and part joking, where I joke with him. It's like, you got that girly beer, man, that fruity. I was like, drink a man's beer, like some kind of Anheuser-Busch or something that tastes like beer. Because he'll show me beers like, check this out, Dad. It'll be like raspberry coffee chocolate peanut butter cake or something, and I'm like, what? And I just start laughing at him. I'm always teasing him about it. It's funny.
So it's not like Natty Ice.
No.
Yeah,
no,
like natural
like
ice, or no. Natty Ice, and what's the other one? Milwaukee. Like it wasn't any Milwaukee.
Dude, Milwaukee's best is probably I think that's the worst beer ever. Seriously,
Blaine, what do you think? What's the worst beer ever?
Yeah, Milwaukee's best is pretty bad. A beer they used to make called a Rhinelander. They made here in the Northwest.
Don't think I've had that.
Yeah. But, a Rhinelander.
I remember, and now that I'm thinking it, and that Blaine's here, I remember that birthday party I was telling you about earlier. That was at my when Matta's Stories just came out. It was at my apartment, and we got a case of it was Goebel's beer. I don't even know if they make that anymore, but it was this really super cheap. It's cheaper, like Gator beer or something. It's cheap as you can get, and we had a boot that we were drinking it from because we were listening to a lot of Wehrmacht, and there's a song on there and some dude puking his guts out there. And I think there's a song on the album about drinking from the boot or something.
Yes.
And so we put a jam box on the back of the toilet in the bathroom, and we hooked up a microphone so that, and we said, if you're going to puke, you have to, we were like 17, 18. If you're going to puke, you have to push record before you do it. And so we were drinking from this boot all night, trying to get somebody to puke. And nobody ever did. Somebody shoved the mic into the bathroom and pissed on it. It didn't break the mic. Somehow it didn't short out or nothing. And then, but so that's the only recording we got, was some really loud urinating on. But yeah.
Who was the next guy to put his lips on that mic? Like, that's what I'd be wondering about. You're like, hey, Brad.
It wasn't like a mic like this. It was like one from maybe the 70s where you sat on on a table, and it just had like this weird like screen, and you would, but when we would record and do like band practice type stuff, that's what I would have to use because we didn't have a mic.
The guy with the lips on the mic,
and it was before I started playing guitar. It was around the same time I started playing guitar, and so I would just sing, and either I would use that mic, or before we had that mic during practice, I would get on the floor in front of the boombox, and I would have to sing near the mic so that when we played the tape back, you could hear all the instruments, and then you could hear me singing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't found my own voice yet, so ironically, I just tried to sound like Blaine everything that I sang. It was hilarious. Yeah. And I have all of that stuff on cassette still.
You'll have to release
every bit of it. I'm a hoarder like that. It's sentimental stuff, man. I can't get rid of it. But Jeremiah, do you want to squeeze something in where you have you been doing anything else other than absinthe and drinking beer? And
dude, I haven't had any absinthe or any drinking or any beer in a while, man. The last thing I had, I think I had it was like a Captain and Coke or something, it was like, and it might have even been a diet, which I kind of hate that, but because I've been doing that whole being in ketosis thing, and so like the last time I drank while being in ketosis, I was drinking as if I was not, and I didn't know the difference. And apparently I read later, and I experienced later before I read about it, that you're going to be real wasted. And I remember laying down in bed, and I was just spinning, dude. I've only had like 3 drinks. It wasn't as if I was, tanked out of my mind or anything. And in fact, it took a while for it to kind of hit me like that. But when it did, I read about it, and they were like, well, because you don't have, you haven't been eating any carbs, man. Like you're in a completely different state. The way you're digesting and everything is really dramatically altered at this point. So I haven't had anything like that. I've been watching, it's kind of weird. I haven't sat, and this is sad, man. I haven't actually been able to watch many movies because I've gotten to the point where my day is really spread out. But I've been enjoying going to getting out a little bit, like going to a soccer game, for example. My son's on a soccer team, and they had games. They just had their last one, and they won their first game, and they won their last game, and they got spanked every game in between. And so, but it was a great time, and it was cool all season long. It was really cool how even when they'd lose and stuff, they'd run over and they would thank everybody for coming, and they were really happy. And then they'd go back and they it reminded me a little bit of the Special Olympics. You know what I mean? Like my brother was in Special Olympics most of his life, and so I'd go, and it was really a great time. And I mean this as I mean it as a compliment, but to say that in Special Olympics, I've seen my brother win a gold medal, and at the end he's super excited and showing off to another person who got a bronze, or and by bronze you could be 5th, 6th place, doesn't matter, everybody's getting it. And they'll trade. Nobody cares. It's not about that. And in fact, when they have kind of a creed at the beginning, like an oath, a promise, and it's to that it's all about the joy of competition, of giving your best and being okay with with whatever happens, that you're here ultimately to have fun and to just simply do your best, and that everybody's proud of you no matter what. And it's really moving thing to hear that. And so it kind of had that vibe, where even though they're getting completely slaughtered, they're all happy and they're all just enjoying themselves. The good sportsmanship. It was never any like problem with that. So it's a really cool thing, man, to do that. But I have watched a little bit. I'm still reading Monster Calls, still reading that. But I've been watching shorter things, right? And I'll stay away from like any of the documentary style stuff I've been watching, and just say this. I've watched a lot of videos that are,
Korean people eating food.
Well, mukbang. Yeah, man. I'm not watching too much mukbang anymore, but I have been watching, stuff like Cougar is stalking a man for 6 minutes, right? Where he's walking and he's freaking out. He's like, go. And he's like trying to get this cougar away. And that bugger is like lunging. And he's like, no. He's like, you get back. And he's talking, he's recording the whole time. It's a crazy thing. He survived, obviously, you know. Or a guy working on palm trees where he's cutting off the fronds of the palms, and they lock it down pretty good. But when something happened, man, and it boom, like this, and he's holding on for dear life, you know, kind of thing. Or
so
bears.
You've just been watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But I don't normally watch that sort of thing. And I've really enjoyed actually doing that. And kind of, you know, I know that people would say, that's lowbrow. You know, what are you doing? Those are just like Harley Har videos. And go, you know, I kind of need a little bit of that right now. So it's been kind of nice, actually, just to enjoy watching, you know, the kind of videos that, you know, Johnny Q and Sally Sue and their kids are watching and making fun of. Like, it's been kind of cool. And it's a bummer. I'm not, you know, I haven't even been able to join my wife watching episodes of Supernatural and everything. I saw maybe a couple episodes of SpongeBob, but that's about the extent, man. Like, I been a busy guy, so I've just been kind of doing the lowbrow thing, but enjoying myself and having fun, laughing, and then getting back to the grind, you know, because it's a lot of work. And so that's what I've been up to, man. What about you, buddy?
You know, I've been doing the 31 Days of Terror where I got to watch a horror movie every day for the month of October. And I kind of signed up for it with a couple friends of mine to do that. And it's kind of been a drag, man, because prior to this, I was watching, you know, I've always been like the anti-nap guy. Like, I'm not going to take a nap, you old man. And, you know, and then it's so weird, man, that reader of my stuff made me that gorgeous shining blanket with the overlook carpet.
Yeah.
And then ever since I got that, dude, I would take a nap almost every day. But it's not like a nap where it's like I'm snoozing. It's more like dozing off on and off like for an hour while I'm watching a movie. So I'll put a movie on, something like nostalgic and comforting, nothing like modern that I'd like is really going to hold my interest. And usually, you know, like a bad horror film or something that, you know, just scratches that nostalgic itch for me. Some kind of like, you know, 70s movie or Italian horror or something like that. Where it's like a comfort food type of thing. And then I'll doze off and then I'll like wake up and then I'll have to rewind like 20 minutes and then I'll doze off again. And sometimes it'll take me like 3 days to watch this movie, if I even remember that I've been watching it in the first place. So, but now I have to squeeze one of these in a day. And at the time I was so into like the Italian horror and bad horror and going back to some 70s stuff, and that maybe just I didn't take the time to watch, but always saw, you know, in the video store or whatever. And so now it's been sucking, man, because I don't have like the 3 or 4 days. I have to watch this movie that I kind of signed up for. And I should have grabbed more things. It's like, oh, everybody says this movie's good. I'm going to add this for October 7th. For October 8th, I'll grab this. But instead, I made this list of stuff that I'm supposed to watch. And I have picked the worst garbage to sit through every day. So I've been watching all of the Amityville movies. I'm on like, it's the 7th one now, and they're horrible. I mean, I like the first one just because I grew up in that time and it was cool, you know, to think, oh, this is real, you know, and this is a real haunted house. But after that, man, these are garbage. Like, or some 70s films like Invasion of the Blood Farmers and what's the one? The worst movie I ever saw was just like a week ago. Ever seen in my life, and it's called Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. And it's bad, man. It's
Have
free.
You ever seen that, Blaine?
I don't know that I've seen that one.
Yeah, I saw that nod, and I was like, I think he may actually know. he's like, or that just sounds like hell. That sounds terrible.
No, it's bad. The a lot of these are like 1 and 2 star for me. There's been a couple that I've seen recently that I revisited that were cool that I hadn't seen in, you know, 35 plus years, like the first Howling. I hadn't seen that since I was, you know, maybe 16 or 17, and I watched that. But for the most part, man, it's been miserable. But there's some stuff coming up on the list that I think is going to be a little bit little bit better. What about yourself, Blaine? What have you been reading or watching or listening to? Or
I'm still waiting for Neon Owl. I was slowly going through this new Max Brooks Sasquatch book. I'm almost at the end of that one. I'm like Jeremiah. I've watched a bunch of short stuff there on the YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different channels on there that do like horror and science fiction, and like that Omeletto. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce the channel. Dust is another channel where they do a bunch of, weird horror stuff. I was into the wrestling there for a while, but now that there's no live audience, I'm not really.
Take some of the fun out of it.
Take some of the fun out of it for me, yeah.
How weird is that, by the way, Blaine? Like, I haven't seen any of those. I've seen video and stuff, and I see, groups trying to hype it. They're like, dude, it was so powerful to see this. And I'm thinking like, there really is something to the idea of like the crowd.
Well, it's a performance. It's a performance art is what it is, so it's not just, and when you're not performing in front of, live people, it's just different.
Yeah, it's just like a performing live versus performing in your garage or basement, you're like, there's that camaraderie between you and the audience where you're swapping like energy, it's like you feed off of each other. I would imagine that wrestling is probably like that too.
Yeah, totally.
And even like watching it seems like, it has almost that, like, it kind of makes sense of home theater, that when you're in a theater, you are part of the gallery, or you're part of the people, right, that are watching this. And it's kind of an experience that you're all in this together, right? The laughter, the clapping, and all this stuff. And when you're watching, even though you aren't there, and you might even wish you were there, there's something about that builds up with you, that you, even with sports games, man, when the crowd's getting wild, the sports announcer says that most of the time, man, people are probably getting wild at home. And there's this kind of relationship that takes place. And so to watch that, it's like, it's like watching, I don't want to get political, but like watching the debates when nobody is in the crowd. And they're like, everyone will be silent here. And you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it just, it loses that dynamic. And I feel like wrestling, especially, because it really is this really cool mixture of sport and drama.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you're going to read Neon Owl. That's up next for you, man.
That's there. Yeah. I was supposed to read it already. And then somehow that, I was reading another book on the e-reader, and then that Max Brooks one came up. It's like, okay, I'll buy that one.
There's so many books that I want to get to, man. I wish that I read faster. I have and then I end up starting like a bunch of different ones, and then I don't even want to finish them, and then it takes me forever. I hate all that. The Neon Owl though is different, man. It's pretty silly. Put it that way. It's not horror, but it's not dark. It's kind of my homage to Joe Lansdale, I guess. And in Rockford Files, if Rockford Files were a little bit raunchier. Yeah.
I can imagine Rockford Files being a little bit raunchier, like off camera. You know what I mean? Like he just kind of has the, like, I can imagine it, man.
Yeah.
I can imagine it.
I don't know. Jim Rockford, he was a gentleman.
Yes,
Good
that's
show.
true.
Love that show.
Yeah.
So speaking of shows, you guys want to talk about Cemetery Dance? Cemetery Dance, not Cemetery Dance. It's a publisher. Cemetery Man.
Yeah. We're talking Cemetery Dance, man. We're getting into some weird crap here, Blaine. I don't know. Chad's pitching something interesting to us. He's like, we were supposed to watch Cemetery Man? Gosh darn it. Like I've been watching Cemetery Dance.
Delamorte Delamore?
Morte Delamore.
Yeah. All right, let's get into that.
All right, man. Sounds good.
You have reached the conclusion of PaleoCheeze Podcast, Episode 22, Part 1.
Do you like horror movies? Do you like collecting things? Do you like collecting Blu-ray special editions of horror movies? Well then, the Horror Academic's Guide to Movies is the show for you. It's a web series where every month I pick one modern classic and determine which is the best version that I recommend that you should own. I talk a little bit about the history of the movie and, In the end, you get to see what films should be in your home collection of horror's modern classics. That's the Horror Academic's Guide to Movies on YouTube every month, and now part of the Project Entertainment Network.